I want to start by addressing your exhaustion. Not the exhaustion of a day's work, but the quiet, deep exhaustion that comes from a lifetime spent trying to please others. It's the exhaustion of being the pillar that holds everything together. The good son, the understanding partner, the friend who is always there for you. It's the feeling of being a supporting actor on the stage of your own life, applauding while others receive the flowers, feeling a growing emptiness inside, a resentment you don't allow yourself to admit, and a paralyzing fear of saying the simplest and most frightening word of all, no. And what keeps you stuck in that role, what keeps you from stepping off the stage, is a core, powerful, and often unconscious fear. It's the belief that has been instilled in you since childhood. If I choose myself, if I put my own needs first, I will be selfish. And if I am selfish, people will not like me. I will be criticized. I will be abandoned. And in the end, I will be hopelessly alone. And we need to honor this fear. It is real, and it has been the keeper of your prison for far too long. But it is to this fear that Carl Jung's depth psychology offers a revolutionary shift in perspective, a key that can unlock your cell. What our society, fearful of authenticity, calls selfishness, Jung would call individuation. And individuation is not an act of ego. It is your most sacred duty to your soul. It is the process of finally becoming the complete, unique, authentic individual you were born to be, rather than remaining a copy molded by the expectations, fears, and desires of others. Think of your soul as a vast and rich kingdom. For a long time, perhaps your entire life, the throne of this kingdom has been empty. Or worse, it has been occupied by external advisors who have made your decisions for you, your parents, your partner, society, religion. Choosing yourself, in the language of the soul, is the act of your coronation. It is you, after a long exile, finally walking into the great hall, climbing the steps, and taking your rightful place as the ruler of your own inner kingdom. The journey we will take together today is not about what you lose when you make this decision. It is about the universe you gain. This video will reveal the 5 seismic shifts, the internal and external changes that inevitably occur when you finally have the courage to claim your throne and put on the crown that has always belonged to you. The first thing that happens when you finally start choosing yourself is, paradoxically, panic. It is the overwhelming fear that arises when contemplating real change. The fear that if you stop being the good guy, the savior of your family, or the pillar of your friend, your entire social world, the entire structure of relationships that you have spent years building, will simply crumble into ruin. And this fear keeps you paralyzed, preferring the security of a family prison to the uncertainty of freedom. What is happening here, in Jung's language, is the death of your persona. The persona is the social mask that we all wear in order to be accepted and to fit in with the world. The problem is that when you live your entire life to please others, your identity completely merges with this mask. You believe that you are the mask. Therefore, the act of choosing yourself, of beginning to speak your truths and honor your need, is the act of removing that persona. And this inevitably causes the disintegration of all the relations and situations that did not depend on you, but on the mask you wore. And here is the revelation that you need to hear and repeat to yourself like a mantra. The initial chaos is not a sign that you've gone wrong. It is proof that you have finally gotten it right. The people who criticize you, blame you, or distance themselves from you at this time were not, in fact, connected to you. They were connected to the role you played for them. The loss of these people is not a real loss. It is a necessary purification. It is the universe clearing the ground so that something much truer can grow. In this process, it is vital that you allow yourself to grieve the persona. Allow yourself to feel the sadness for the friendships that are gone, for the family dynamics that are broken. Don't judge yourself for missing the way you were, even if it wasn't healthy. Honor the crucial role your old persona, your mask, has played in your survival up to this point. It has protected you and helped you get to this point. Thank it with love, and then let it go, like you would let go of an old garment that, while once useful, is now too tight and no longer fits. Think of it this way. You cannot build a sacred temple on the rotten, shaky foundation of a house that was built to house the desires and expectations of others. The act of choosing yourself is the courageous act of tearing that house down. And yes, it is scary. It is noisy, it kicks up dust, and it leaves you for a while, staring at an empty lot. But it is the only way to clear the space so that you can finally begin to build your own sacred home, a place that is the authentic expression of your soul. After the dust of disintegration begins to settle, a new perception emerges, and with it, a new pain. It is the pain of confusion. It is the moment when you find yourself free from the expectations of others, but realize that you no longer know what you want or feel. It is the paralysis of having the voice of your own intuition, of your instinct, so muffled by the deafening noise of other people's opinions that it has become an almost inaudible whisper of foreign language that you can no longer understand. What happens at this stage, in the language of deep psychology, is the strengthening of the ego-self axis. For Jung, our psychic health depends fundamentally on the quality of communication between our ego, the center of our consciousness, and our self, the center of our totality, our inner wisdom. By constantly living outward, seeking external approval, our ego disconnects from the self. The act of choosing yourself, of turning to your own realm, forces the ego to look for guidance in a new place. It turns inward, and the long-damaged line of communication with the self begins to be repaired. And the break in expectation here is that your intuition is not a weak, esoteric, little voice. Your intuition is the voice of yourself, giving you clear, precise direction. When you remove the interference of external voices, this guidance becomes the loudest, clearest, most reliable voice in your life. You gradually stop asking others what you should do. You stop asking permission to be who you are. And you begin to act from an inner knowing, a deep, calm, unshakable knowing that simply knows what the next right step is for you. To start practicing listening to this internal compass, you can do a body check before making a decision. Whether it's small or big, find a quiet place and close your eyes for a moment. Think about option A, about the possibility of following that path. Now, instead of analyzing it with your mind, just notice the sensations in your body. Does it expand, relax, feel lighter and more open? Or does it contract? Does your chest tighten? Does your stomach churn? Does it feel heavier? Then do the same for option B and compare the sensation. Your body doesn't lie. It is the physical antenna of yourself. Think of living for others as having your soul's radio tuned to a station of pure static, where you desperately try to decipher 1,000 voices speaking at the same time. It's confusing and exhausting. The act of choosing yourself is the act of picking up the radio dial with determination and purpose, and slowly turning it, passing through all the noisy stations until you finally find your frequency. The music playing on it is clear, it is resonant, and it is unmistakable. It is the music of your own truth. The third major transformation happens when your new internal compass begins to recalibrate your external world. To understand what changes, we first need to remember what it was like before. It was the feeling that life was a constant struggle, a never-ending struggle. The feeling that you were always swimming against the current, that the right doors never opened for you, and that achieving anything required enormous sacrifice, leaving you perpetually tired and feeling like the universe was somehow conspiring against you. What happens when you choose yourself is a profound shift in your own biology and energy. You move from a state of survival coherence, a state dominated by stress hormone, resentment, and lack, to a state of creation coherence, a state governed by authenticity, joy, and inner peace. And as modern neuroscience teaches us, this shift in your state of being fundamentally alters the electromagnetic field that your heart and brain emit every second to change your vibrational signature. And when your internal signature changes, the external world, like a large mirror, has no choice but to reflect this new image back to you. This is where synchronicity, Jung's meaningful coincidences, begin to happen with astonishing frequency. The right people start to appear in your life. The opportunity you needed appears out of nowhere. The resource you were missing arrives from an unexpected source. And this is not magic, it's physics. The universe begins to mirror the order, clarity, and coherence that you have finally established within yourself. You stop fighting life, and life begins to dance with you. To strengthen this new communication with the universe, we invite you to practice active recognition. Begin to notice and be grateful for every little synchronicity. When that book you are reading falls open to the page with the exact answer to your question, say out loud, "Thank you." Nah? When the person you needed to reach calls you at exactly the right time, smile and say, "Thank you." By actively recognizing this new language, you strengthen your connection. You show the universe that you are paying attention and that you are ready to receive more. Consider that before, when you lived for others, you were like a piece of unmagnetized metal. Your inner atoms, your wants and fears were pointing in all conflicting directions. And so, you were just tossed around by external forces. By choosing yourself, by aligning your thoughts, feelings and actions with your truth, you align all your inner particles in the same direction. You become a powerful magnet. You stop chasing opportunities and relationships. You simply start attracting them by the strength of your unified field. As you begin to attract a new reality, a new anguish presents it. It is the chronic exhaustion of feeling that your energy, time, and goodwill are constantly drained by people and situations that do not add anything to you. It is the pain of being an inexhaustible resource for others, but a dry well for yourself. This happens because of your inability to set limits, to protect your own sacred space, which leaves you in a perpetual state of energy leakage. The act of choosing yourself, of sitting on your inner throne, is what activates one of the most powerful archetypes of the human psyche, the sovereign archetype. Be the king or queen, the wise ruler of your own kingdom. And what depth psychology and history teach us is that the first and most important function of a sovereign is not to attack, but to protect the borders of his kingdom. A kingdom without clear boundaries is not a kingdom. It is an invaded and plundered territory. And here is the revelation that can transform your fear of setting boundaries. Boundaries are not walls that isolate you from the world. Boundaries are conscious gates, and you are the gatekeeper who decides who gets in and who gets out. The act of saying no to something that doesn't serve you, that doesn't honor you, or that drains your energy is not an act of aggression against another. It is the deepest act of honor towards yourself. It is the silent and powerful declaration that your energy is a sacred resource, not a public good available to all. To begin exercising this sovereignty, you can practice what we call the sovereign no. It is a way of saying no that is clear, respectful, and non-negotiable. It is based on 3 simple steps. First, validate. Show that you've heard the other person's request. I understand that you need help with this. Or, I see that this is important to you. Second, declare. Calmly and firmly state your position, without making lame excuses that can be negotiated. Simply say, "However, I am not available to help with that right now." And third, and perhaps most difficult, silence. After stating your boundary, do not fill the uncomfortable silence that follows. Simply support your decision with your calm, centered presence. Think of your life force energy as your personal bank account. Living for others without boundary is like giving your card and PIN to everyone, allowing them to make withdrawals at any time, leaving you constantly in the red. The act of choosing yourself is the act of becoming the manager of your own bank. You do not become a greedy or selfish person. You become a wise investor who carefully considers where to apply your energy, choosing only those investments that will bring you the highest interest of joy, peace, and purpose. And so we come to the final frontier, the deepest and most primal fear of all, the one that fuels all the others, the fear of loneliness. The terrifying belief that if you show up for who you really are in all your authenticity, and if you put your needs first, no one will love you. The fear that the price of sovereignty is eternal loneliness, that you will be deemed unlovable and will die alone. What we need to understand is the difference between persona relationships and self-relationships. The connections you lost when you began to choose yourself were, for the most part, persona relationships. They were conditional bonds, based on the mask you wore and the role you fulfilled. The loneliness that follows this purification, painful as it may be, is not a sentence. It is a sacred vacuum. It is the necessary space that the universe creates so that something much more real and true can finally enter. And herein lies the great and wonderful paradox. The final revelation crowns your journey. You can only be truly seen and deeply loved when you become authentic. By choosing yourself, by shining your inner light unapologetic, you become a beacon. And that beacon begins to attract your true soul tribe. other whole people, other rulers of their own realm, who are not drawn to you by your need or your mass, but by the resonance of your light. And you discover that the deepest and most beautiful connection is not between two halves who complete each other, but between two wholes who recognize each other. To align your energy with this new type of connection, you are invited to make a connection statement. Write down on paper, clearly and objectively, not how the other person should be, but how you want to feel in your ideal relationships. I want to feel seen. I want to feel respected. I want to feel free to be myself. I want to feel celebrated. Read this statement regularly. It becomes your new vibrational pattern, your new soul filter, which will help you decide who is allowed to enter and remain in your sacred realm. Think about how before, when you lived for others, you were like a giant lighthouse trying to disguise itself as a small fishing hut so that you would be accepted and not intimidate the small boats that passed by. And the result? You were not a good hut, and you had stopped functioning as a lighthouse. By choosing yourself, you embrace your height or structure and shine your light at full power. Some small boats, accustomed to the cabin, may get scared and drift away. But the big ships, those sailing the same deep waters as you, will see your light from afar and celebrate with joy that they have found their way home. We have traveled together today from the exhaustion of being a supporting actor to the coronation of the sovereign. We have gone through the frightening disintegration of your false identity, the awakening of your inner compass, the reconfiguration of your reality, and the embodiment of your power to protect your energy. And finally, we have gone through the fear of loneliness to discover the paradox of the true connection. It is clear now that choosing yourself has never been about selfishness. It has always been about becoming a trustworthy, centered, and authentic individual, the only solid foundation upon which a truly healthy and reciprocal relationship can be built. You become a safe haven for yourself, and by extension, a safe haven for others. As Jung himself said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are. What happens when you finally choose yourself above all else is that you stop asking for permission and finally claim that privilege. You take your life as your own. The world doesn't need you to fade away so that others can shine. The world doesn't need your copy, your mask, or your sacrifice. The world desperately needs your unique light, lit at its fullest. And what happens when you finally choose yourself above all else? You stop looking for a place to fit in and finally start to belong, first and foremost, to yourself.